everybody, this is Anne, and welcome back to Painting Big, where we have me, your host, Quindy, Justin, John, and a little fuzzy dog who wants to snoodle me right now. Okay, want to get up on the chair? Kiki! Chair! Good girl, Kiki! The star of the show. The real star. The real star. Your face isn't to where they can see you, though. Yeah, good girl. There's the smile. There's the smile. Good girl. Yay. All the pattons. All the pattons. Good girl. Good girl. So floofy. So floofy. Look at this floof. Look at this floof. So floofy. What they can't see is that you're getting feather feet. Feather feet, finally. Plus Shilohs get feather feet. Which is the long hair between the toes starts going floof. Yeah, you're starting to get feather feet. Good girl. Good girl, Keeks. 1 second, guys. All right, let's get you a secondary chair. All right. Had to get her a chew. Oh, dear me. Hi, everybody. How are you? She came over and wanted scritches right before the intro, so. Yay! And Kodiak with the resub for 14 months. Thank you. Aw, thanks for the Kiki Pounces, Aerowiz. Kiki Pounces. Those are the cutest. Thanks to Chibi Amy's eldest Chibi who drew Kiki. Yep. Yes, feather feet. Feather feet is what we call it in Shilohs. Most people keep the feather feet trimmed. But since Kiki's not going to be a show dog, I think she will be allowed to develop her feather feet. The only problem with feather feet is that you can't see how long the nails are growing as well. So that's the reason to keep it trimmed. But yeah, how are y'all? Hey, it's Friday. It's also I become a Diablo Widow day. Not really, not quite yet, but today starts the server slam, so they're testing their servers. So anybody, if you wanted to, anybody can play Diablo 4 today, starting at noon Pacific time, for free. If you have to download the patch, and it's a monster, because you're essentially pre-downloading the game. But you can do it. So I'm going to do it and try it, because the game is not cheap, and I am debating whether I want to spend the money. But David, of course, is like lying in wait with bated breath because he took the day off so that he could start playing right at noon. Yes, it is also just Friday. Thank God. All right. Hello, little mousy. Where are my gold colors? Gold colors. Gold colors. And then pearl white. Okay. We're doing some highlights on the brass today. Then probably, I'm thinking... The blue that I thought about using Storm Chaser blue for his thing. We used Hobgoblin for Jolie, and I do have it here, so I could just use Hobgoblin and darken it a little bit. Maybe I'll do that. I do kind of want to get that, get the blue blocked in. I'm thinking about making the hat and the coat blue, since he's got black boots and he's got dark fur, so. Oh, it depends on it depends, Agent Marvel. It depends on the ambient temperature because heat will cause green to cure faster. I would probably let it cure for 24 hours just to be safe. I mean, you might be able to do it, but, probably could do it with 12, but I would just leave it. I would just leave it at least 12 hours, at least overnight, okay? Overnight. I would say overnight to be safe if you are not putting it under a heat source. And if you do put it under a heat source, it has to be a very low-key heat source because if you get too close or too hot, the green will blister. So yeah, I think I'm gonna block in the blues and then I'm gonna start the brass and we'll bring up the highlights. Yeah, so it's just gonna cure ambient. I mean, it'll take several hours to cure, most likely. I've painted over green in the past, and I just always gave it at least, like, overnight, just to be safe. Because otherwise it can crack. The paint or primer can kind of crack on top of the green. Get kind of a crackle effect. Yeah. Create a weight workout plan. Oh, yeah. Yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on whether you're doing, if you're just doing like, if you're doing like elastic bands, like exercise bands, you could do the same exercises, just modify them and make sure you're using a lighter weight band. But I don't know if you're using weights, it's very different, right? Especially if you're using free weights. Because then there's form to consider as well, and then you probably have to directly change the exercises. Morning, Shadow Raven. Yeah, if you finished it last night, I'd say it's safe. If you finished it this morning, or finished the green work, I mean, then I would give it at least till mid-afternoon, I would say, just to be safe. Just to be safe. Let me grab this blue, and I'm going to want to darken the Hobgoblin blue. What do I want to darken it with? I don't want to darken it with anything that's going to make it go cold. I think I'm going to darken it with Rogue Shadow here. Body weight and hoping to get into resistance. Yeah, okay. Yeah, body weight makes sense. You'd have to modify some exercises. I got used to that in yoga because David could do a lot more stretchy things than I could. So I had to kind of just do a little bit. Like when we were watching videos during the pandemic, we did yoga together at least once a week to just get us moving. And there were things that woman did that were crazy. Seriously. And David could do them, but I could not. So I had to like exercise my common sense as to how to modify the move. Some yoga books are great. They'll give you modified exercises. Some weight books as well. If they're doing, like if they're specifically targeted, not toward just a bodybuilding audience. But yeah, I mean, generally just use your common sense. If you can't do the move your body's going to tell you, just pay attention. I mean, some things you're going to look at and your brain's just going to nope. They're going to nope out. Listen to your brain. And see if there's a small modified move that you could do instead. Because, like, it's okay to ache, but it's not okay to feel sharp pain. So, all right, I'm going to put 1 drop of water in that. It's 2 drops of Rogue Liner, 4 drops of Hobgoblin Blue. I just wanted to darken it a little bit and dingy it up a little bit for this mouse dude. Oh, I should show you guys my new tree. I think I showed you. I might have showed you my new tree already. The new tree, actually, no, I didn't, because the new tree went in yesterday while we were streaming. That's right. Here, I took a picture. There we go. This is our new tree. It's red. It'll stay red. And it's a lace leaf maple. So it's got very delicate kind of frondy leaves. But it's that color. It's really nice next to the other greenery around it. Yeah, and it'll grow. I'd give it like another year to be toward the top of the fence, assuming it does well. But yeah. I like trees. David took out our avocado this morning himself. He decided he didn't want to swap our trees. He just wanted to destroy the avocado if it was going to be a problem. So sadly, a tree died this morning. I was sad. It was not my first choice, but he did point out the fact that he could either go and just remove the avocado himself for free, or we could pay $1,500 to have it removed. And yeah, looking at it like that kind of made it, yeah, I guess. I'm still not happy because I love trees, but at least we planted a tree when we killed a tree. Yeah, I like resistance bands too. Because they're cheaper and they're nice, like you get them at various levels, and you still get the experience of free weights as far as having, you know, not being on a weight machine, which does some of the positioning for you. Ooh, this coat is like, the paint is like, I don't want to stick to this, even though I washed this dude. What's up with you, mouse coat? What's up with you? So yeah, I'm super happy. Now I have to figure out where my fountain goes around the maple tree. And I'm thinking I might want to plant another plant. All right, so let's take a look. This is coat. Yeah, it's all going to be blue. The shirt is white, off-white. I'm using a number 2 brush since this is a bigger model. It's still got a good tip, so I can still hit the details. But using a bigger brush on a bigger model makes sense. You cover the ground faster. Just make sure that it does have a decent tip so that when you do get near to detail areas, you can hit them without blorfing. That's a good blue. Oh, and I'm still fuzzy. I'm fuzzy. Very fuzzy. There, I'm unfuzzy. So yeah, thinking I'm going to wait until tonight to play the Diablo 4. It's not my real character anyway. I'm just going to give it a try. We'll see. I mean, they've modified a lot of it that I didn't like. I played Diablo 3 a long time ago when it first came out. So you don't have to replay the same campaign 3 times, which was just annoying. And it feels a lot like Path of Exile, which is a game I do enjoy. But Path of Exile also isn't going to charge me $70 to play it. So, yeah. Not sure. I just want to make sure I like it before I blow that money. Because I'm trying to be really, really tight with my money this month. Body weight stuff. Oh, nice. Nerd Fitness. Cool. That sounds just right up my alley. Yeah, I do just body weight stuff in the morning. My yoga routine that I do in the morning to get myself ready for the day. To get myself ready to sit in this this chair for an hour and a half and paint with you all. That's a body weight routine. A combination of yoga and body weight stuff and stretches. And like really does put me like in a good space to do this all without pain. Yeah, this is a little bit paint phobic, this surface. So if you see that the paint doesn't want to adhere to a Bones model, but you did wash it, you know, and you're pretty sure that, you know, it's as good as it's going to get, just use thicker paint. Usually it'll work just fine. Yeah, stretches, especially as we're getting older, are, I think, non-negotiable these days in my life. If I stopped doing them, I would have so much back pain so quickly, and it's amazing that just the little stretching I do essentially keeps my back pain away. There are times I get twingy. Like if I abuse myself for a day, you guys will hear me say that my back's kind of twingy, and I'll just kind of see how it goes. But in general, about 15 minutes of exercises in the morning, and then another 15 minutes of stretches before I go to bed, and I'm pretty good. And it's a relatively small time investment, all things considered. So, would endorse. Yeah. I'll check out Nerd Fitness. That sounds fun. Maybe I could get a new routine to try. There we go. The blue looks good with him, I think. Yeah, and that's something that's for sure, Shadow Raven. Though that said, it's definitely worth taking up a stretching routine if you can, because especially if you are overweight, I know it does put stress on your body. I mean, if I could just drop these last stubborn, 40 pounds, my back would be a lot happier. But I'm fighting, like I'm struggling to do that. So I understand. And I used to be much heavier than I am now. Yeah, exactly, Aerowiz. Yeah, that's just it. It's like even a little bit of cardio and then a little bit of stretching, like that makes a huge difference. David, I actually do lots more exercise than David, but David's natural athleticism level is much higher than mine. Like he's just generally more flexible and he's stronger and like he has better endurance. Just a natural, he's got a base level that's higher than mine. So it's frustrating sometimes because I'm the one who goes out and walks twice a day and does all my yoga, and sometimes does resistance bands. And he's the one who could just like out everything me. Yeah, I agree, Kodiak. I agree. Yeah. Yeah, the stretching is definitely still worth it, Shadow Raven. Okay, so we're gonna go blue up here too and see how he looks. I don't know though. Now that I get the blue, I was worried that it would be too much blue, and now I'm kind of thinking I was right. Now I'm kind of thinking maybe I want to go with a dusty black hat instead, and just leave the blue below because this is gonna look too much like a uniform, I think. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, weight fluctuates a lot. Water retention and everything else. That's why I'm just frustrated right now. But I mean, I've measured myself and I know I have lost weight since I started the Noom thing. It's just my body just wants to hang on to it a lot more now that I'm seriously menopausal. Or just something that happens. And that's, hormones have a huge effect on your weight and weight loss too. It's just harder to lose weight. So it is what it is. Yep. Yeah, pretty much I'm just happy I can still do a lot of the things I really love to do. And that I currently don't need meds to handle my digestive stuff. Alrighty, let's do black instead. I'm gonna put a little bit of brown in my black. Actually, I'll do a little bit of russet brown, I think, if I can find out where I stuffed it. It's around here somewhere. Oh, maybe I took it in the other room. Oh, no, there it is. There, we'll grab russet brown. Oh, yeah, my Fitbit, I use the app a lot. And my Fitbit definitely keeps me accountable with the steps. So my Fitbit was nice, Zachariah, because it pretty much taught me that I didn't have to exert myself to get the steps. I just really needed to just get the steps. When it comes to lowering my resting heart rate, that's where I have to get my heart rate up when I'm exercising. If I want my resting heart rate to be at 60 or less, I have to be doing some exertion exercise, some cardio that gets me up into the fitness zone. But otherwise, as far as like just burning calories during the day and weight loss, just getting the steps is the best thing you can do. So when I get 9 or 10,000 steps a day, just usually 2 walks a day for me, plus normal moving around during the day, I find it easier to lose the pounds. That and tracking what I eat. I have to track what I eat because I'm just like, if I don't, I just lose it. Like, I just go off the rails. Because I'm a stress eater, so stress hits and I eat. So I need to have a way to keep myself mindful of that so that I can moderate it. I can't get rid of it, but I can moderate it. But yeah, so hopefully your Fitbit will give you an assist. I like mine. Number 2, brush again, because the hat is big. I had to let the blue mostly dry. I still need to let it dry, so what I'm going to do is actually go around the part that I haven't done yet, and then I'll paint over. So this is a 4-to-1 Dragon Black and Russet Brown, and it's kind of giving me a dirty looking black, which is what I wanted. Yep. Yeah, and tracking is just, much as tracking is a pain in the butt, it really is the best way, at least for me, to keep track of it. That's why I just started, this month I started being more hardcore with my financial tracking too, my money tracking. Because I always seem to fritter away my extra money by the end of the month. Like, I put stuff in savings, so I'm not touching that, but as far as like my money that just goes in my daily expenses account for whatever, it just seems like I shouldn't be spending as much as I am. So I've started tracking that too, because it's just the only way is to keep myself mindful of it. And that way, since I have to write it down in my little thing, when I spend it, I think about it a lot more. Because I'm sure I'm buying like audiobooks or, like regular Kindle books and stuff like that. And this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, that and they don't overeat, Vic. Like the French paradox, as it's called, and that is actually a name for it. It's scientifically documented. But the French paradox is that they don't cut out healthy fats, and they, enjoy good food, and, they still manage to not be nearly as unhealthy as we are in America. And the reason is, yes, they walk or bike everywhere. They also don't super overeat. And they also do tricks that make you eat less. Like, they eat sociably usually, but they, like, actually interact with each other, which can help. But yeah, there's a number of things. My Noom actually talks about it, and so do a couple of the books that I've read on just general like food and food psychology and behavior psychology type stuff for weight loss. But yeah, the way they tend to eat tends to be a sit down and like be more mindful about it. Like they tend to eat as a family, and and it de-stresses you instead of stressing you up. And they don't eat huge portions. I mean, the big thing that's killing us in America, maybe literally, is just these huge portions all the time. Like whenever I go out to a restaurant, like I just only want half of it, right? It's just too much food. But we're used to it. And then we feel like we aren't getting enough if we don't get that amount of food.
Tracking is the solution to a lot of things, but we're resistant to it. I was doing okay. Like, I pretty much was just like doing the no track approach, but at the start of the month, I would just separate out my finances. But I decided that I was sure I could save more money if I like actually tracked my main account. And maybe then if I have extra money at the end of the month, I can toss that into savings too. So trying to save up for taking Kiki to the Nationals in Colorado, which is going to be expensive. Yeah, and they've got a big long break too, like a big holiday break, Agent Marble. Like they're used to taking regular holidays and stuff. Yeah, we're screwed up. Like it's our whole thing. It's our whole like the way we work, the way we eat, the way we stress out. All right, I needed to touch up his mouth a little bit. So I'm just taking my hat color and doing that. Grr. Yeah, it's just let's just say the American lifestyle, both in work and in play, sets us up for failure. Makes it very easy for us to fail. But I mean, being mindful and doing tracking, if you feel like you're out of control, can help you feel like you're in control. So, yeah. I know that if I have to look at it every time I spend money, like I'm going to spend less money. That's just the case. It's going to be that way. So there's a great book called Your Money or Your Life, which was one of the books that sparked the FIRE movement, the retire early movement, financial independence, retire early. One of the things that she does is essentially say, track every penny that goes into and out of your life. You know, she's like, it's going to feel weird, but just do it because it's the only way to get yourself really understanding how your money is being spent and not just, spending when you feel like it and then wondering where it all went at the end of the month. So it's a good book. I listened to the audio version, but yeah, some of the stuff, it's all useful information. It's how I originally learned about like the cost of electronics being more than just what you pay for your electronics. Like the fact that when you buy a new phone, you're also like, that phone created a carbon footprint, right? And like a significant one often. So like if you buy a new phone every 2 years, your impact on the planet is not positive with that. So things like that, just making me like use things for longer before I get a replacement. I mean, I'm pretty much driving my car until it dies. Yeah, total cost of ownership, exactly. So whenever I need a reminder and kind of an inspirational thing, because I find that book actually very inspirational, I re-listen to Your Money or Your Life. It's old, it's a classic, but the latest Audible version has an updated intro, and she updated a lot of the original info too. It kind of makes you ask yourself, how much money do I really need to live on? Okay, I'm just going to re-black his boots to make sure that they're the same color as the hat. There. Okay, so now we're looking a lot better. We're almost all blocked in. I like the black hat better. So I am going to grab I think I want to use desert sand for the shirt because I want it to be dingy. I'll highlight it up to white, but I want it to start kind of looking like dinge. Where is my desert sand? There we go. So for a warm white, if you don't want a really yellow, buttery white, desert sand's a good call. You can create a natural linen color, or you can just dirty it up. But yeah, I listen to Your Money or Your Life if I want to get inspired about taking control of my money life, and I listen to the other one that's good is Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. I'm not into his religious bent, but it's fairly a very small part of the book, so... And it is pretty inspirational. When I was in debt, like, that book saved me. Like, it actually helped me get out of debt. And I've been debt-free, except for periodic. Like, if I have a big expense, I'll put it on the credit card and just pay it off really quick. But yeah, that book, I was in debt for years. Years and years and years and years and years. At least a decade. And then that book came along. And now I have a nice emergency fund, so I don't have to stress about money. And I'm trying to make progress on the rest of it. All right, so we're doing a 4-to-1 on that desert sand. Actually, I should probably listen to Your Money or Your Life again just because I'm doing this money tracking thing this month. It'll help reinforce it. I like using my audiobooks as reinforcement. Mostly because I want to like end up with extra money at the end of the month so I can buy more yarn. That's all like, I want to buy minis and yarn. Like, let's just be honest about this, right? Why does Anne want to save money and have extra money at the end of the month? So she can buy minis and yarn guilt-free. That's why. Right? Totally. And I also bought, I did buy one thing, since Luca had talked about those So Flat golden colors. I actually picked one up. I couldn't bring myself to like duplicate colors that I already have in miniatures paints, so I actually bought an artist color that I haven't been able to find in miniatures paints, which is Raw Umber, which is one of the pigments that I used at Reaper, but it was a very low coverage version, and was pretty weak. So I wanted to see what they did with it. And they produced a higher coverage version, so it's probably a high density. But I'm really curious to see how it goes. If it's at all like the pigment that I was using. I think it's the last 2 Saturdays. I should be on tomorrow, despite Diablo. I'm gonna resist it, Turgid. I'm gonna resist the Diablo, and I'm going to be on tomorrow afternoon and stream. I'll probably work on Andy's model again, so I'll probably be working on this lady. But yeah, it's tomorrow around 3:30 USA Central Time on twitch.tv/paintingbig. I'll see you. Yeah, that's why you want extra money too, right, Zachariah? Yep. Swing by minis and, well, maybe not yarn in your case, but you know. Arrowwiz National Shiloh, our Shiloh Shepherd National is, it's in, I want to say it's like the first weekend of November or the end of October. And I don't remember. I'll have to double check. I kind of think Colorado Springs. Don't quote me on that though. Or maybe it's around Denver. I'll have to look. It's so far out that I just haven't even like gotten there yet, but I do need to book the hotel once they have the block set. So, I'll look up the info. If you're around, you can stop by and see some Shiloh Shepherds and meet some if you wanted to, and see me and Kiki. Yeah, the house stuff can really, if you're not ready for it, if you haven't put aside a fund, I know the house stuff can really sideline you, Twisted Oma. Yeah, it does, doesn't it, Vic? It changes everything in a really good way, because credit card debt is just a killer. It's just a killer. Lucas said that it's not, he likes them. I get the feeling that he's just giving them a run, and he likes things about them. He likes things about other paint lines too. I mean, this is how it is, guys. No paint line is going to revolutionize your life. You know, one paint line, though, might be, like, very, very good for you. So, just like I tell you guys, I always tell you, pick up a couple of colors and try them before you go all in. That's I actually do practice what I preach on this. So that's why I only picked up one of the So Flat colors. I want to try it. I want to see what the consistency is like. I want to see what... Right away, I'll tell you it looks really matte, and I'm a little concerned about that. I don't know if I like that finish on a dark color. So I'm going to mess around with it. If I like it, then we might buy more. David was actually more interested than I was. So David may actually, maybe I can talk him into buying a set instead. Yeah. Tomorrow is 3:30 p.m. USA Central Time. It's 1:30 for me out here on the West Coast, and it'd be 4:30 for you on the East Coast. But yeah. So essentially, whenever there's a fad thing or whenever there's something that people are like, howling about, I do try to grab like a sample of it so I can kind of figure out what it is and talk to you guys about it, right? No, it's 15:30 is the same as 3:30. We're good. We're good. I just like to do it after I'm done with lunch, and usually I like to watch the pregame for my Overwatch League, or the pre-show. So usually I start at 1:30. That lets me have a relaxing lunch with David on Saturdays, essentially, and still stream. So yeah, the golden metallics are interesting for sure, and I do use them now, so I can say that I actually do use them. All right, where are we? We are putting another coat on that shirt. But yeah, so these are the golden So Flats, and they're very matte, fluid acrylic, which obviously is based on the stuff that hobby paints have been doing. When traditional paint companies finally figured out that tube paints are kind of like good for some stuff, but not good for other stuff. Like if you're an illustrative painter, if you're doing illustration, you really don't want tube paint because you're not looking to leave a texture, right? That's the whole point behind tube paints, is getting that impasto thing. But today's art doesn't necessarily want that. So we're gonna, so there we go. So it looks white. You can tell that it's an off-white and not a pure white, and that's fine. But I wanted that to be the start at least, and I'll take some shield brown and outline the collar and probably stipple a little into the shadows just to make it seem like it's all dirtied up, like he'd been out in the field. But yeah, so I'll give those, maybe I'll order one of the reds, because red is my usual order for to try a new paint line. But I was too tempted by the raw umber since I haven't seen anybody else do it. The problem with it is that it does tend to be a very transparent pigment. So I guess a lot of lines just decide it's not as useful. But David took one look at it and his eyeballs lit up, so obviously he likes it. So I was going to go red with the band on top of the hat. Now I'm considering going blue instead. What do you guys think? There's no red anywhere else on the model. There's just the pink for his nose and stuff. So I probably would fade it out with that color, but I'm kind of feeling the blue now because color composition wants me to repeat the colors around the model. So I'm kind of feeling like a blue band instead, because I decided not to take the hat blue, but I still want to pull the eye up. And I'm afraid the red's going to be too distracting. No, you don't want to go with any color you haven't already used on the model, Numbat. Because essentially if I made this purple, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb because there's no purple anywhere else on the figure. This is I'm going to be doing a PDF on this for my $2 tier on the Patreon for this coming month. And it's going to be color composition. What is it? And why is it important? But you don't ever want to pick a color that's like totally different from something else. It tends to yank the eye up there, and then the eye isn't looking at other stuff. Like it can put emphasis on the wrong area. Yeah. But I can highlight and fade the blue up on the hat so that it does show up. Right, and it's going to distract, right? The red is going to distract. If I put the red up here, I'm betting I'm not going to... I'm imagining it, and I'm just not liking it. Yeah, I could mute it out, but... My gut says the blue has to go there. Because color composition. And I can fade it out with what I was talking to you guys about the other day, introducing some driftwood brown, which is I was already going to do on the coat to fade it out. And so this will get lighter. It won't be dark. It won't fade into the hat or anything. So I think I'm going to do it. And if we decide the blue is just not working, then I can pop some red in there. But if I had room to like put a red accent anywhere else, then I could do it. But his little paw wraps all the way around this sword. I really don't have any room for the hilt to show up. Like a hilt color is one of the things that I would do. So if you had red here and red there, and you had room to actually put a red accent over here, you could get away with the red because you'd be pulling it around the figure and you'd have it more than one place. But if you just throw the red up there, for one thing, it's red. It's like the warmest, brightest thing on the model, and it's right away going to pull the impact like up to the top of the hat, and you're just going to stare at the hat when you see the piece, and I don't want that. And then you're going to stick there because there's no red anywhere else to pull your eye around. Now, if we have a bigger base, we could experiment with putting dashes of red in the environment. That's one thing you can do with a display base or a larger base with things on it that that actually would have color. Even painted stone. You can do that repetitive thing then, even if you don't have room on the model. So, we could consider it if we had red on the base, but I don't even know what his base is going to look like yet. So I'm going to do blue, and we'll see how it looks. And if I do it and it's doesn't seem harmonious to me, my gut says it's not, or my gut says we need more, because you're right, it's going to disappear, right? It's going to disappear into this black. So I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to see. Yeah, you could do a tan beige because of the shirt, because I'm going to take that down in the brown. But then it's kind of boring, and I'm wasting a color accent area. And it does let me repeat the blue. So I like the harmoniousness of it. But it does, you are right, it does tend to fade in next to the black. So we'll dirty it up with a lot of beige, and we'll see how we can do. Yeah, part of me, yeah, you might, if I can figure out a way to put red on the base, I'll consider the red. Yeah, it's hard. It's rough. It's rough, man. But anyway, that's a placeholder. And if we decide, because I'm with you, I like see, it does fade in. So for now, we'll call it a placeholder, and if I can fade it out and bring it up and make it look dingy with beige and brown, then I think it'll be okay. And if I really still don't like it, then I'll try the red, and I'll just be forced to find other places to put the red. But yeah, so that's the challenge of color composition. Sometimes you want to do something, but you may not have a good place to repeat that color somewhere. Now, you can be real subtle, too. So another thing I could consider, if I went with a faded red on this hat band, is I could add that faded red as a shadow to his nose, his lip, his ear, his tail. So I could essentially sneakily, so you don't have to repeat the color by making something else on the model the color. You could also just use that color for shading or highlighting, and that's enough. That's enough for your eye to catch that and for it to produce a sense of harmony. So there is more than one way to skin a mouse. All right. Let's get some of these metallics going. Yeah, tan and beige being a neutral, I tend not to use neutrals as accents, but that's just me. It's my personal color philosophy. So the first thing I'm going to do is get some of my tarnished brass, which was my base coat, 9198, mixed up so that I can use it to kind of touch up areas that I dingied down. And then we're going to get our golden iridescent fine. If you don't have this, use New Gold 9051. New Gold is the closest thing we have to a pure pigment lighter gold. You could also try to use Dragon Gold from Bones. But in the end, I'm going to be mixing some pearl white into it. You can either use the golden iridescent pearl, or you can use the Master Series Pearl White. I'll be using Master Series today. I didn't really get to do any painting this week. Yeah, I really want to kind of do some painting this weekend. So yeah, I'll probably work on Andy's model a bit on stream, but I may also work on my comic book style orc and keep blocking in his black and white underpainting. Because I've been kind of jazzed to work on that, and I just haven't had the time in the evenings. I've been prioritizing other stuff during the week. Oof. Yeah. See, that's a weird quad scheme, isn't it? Orange, magenta. Can you make that work? So you did orange, magenta, and orange, blue, magenta, and light green. So yellow, green. Yeah, that's not... Yeah, okay. Orange. I see it. So you want to take your magenta a little more purple. That's a tetrad scheme. I see it. The orange and blue are going to work just great together, obviously. Without seeing the model, I can't really advise you, but I would definitely take your magenta more toward blue in the shadows. Just looking at this. And yeah, you checked it with the color wheel. Yeah, and red violet, magenta is a little bit redder than the red violet they're talking about there. So you may find that it works a little better, because magenta is actually a red. Like, it's a very cold red, but it still counts as a red. But yeah. When you've got 4 colors, that's why I typically only go with 3 color schemes, to be honest, Agent Marble, is because I find that a 4 color scheme, unless your model is very complicated, and if you do have a really complicated bust with like multiple layers of fabric and different doodads and all sorts of stuff, yeah, you can totally make a 4 color scheme work. It can work. But I find it a lot easier to like go with 3. Especially if the model's like a 28, where you usually don't have that level of complexity you might get in a big bust. You might want to decide on either light green or magenta and just go with that. Because remember, whenever you've got a 4 color or a 3 color scheme, you can choose just 2 or 3 of those colors. You don't have to choose all 4. It'll still work. So you might want to look at it and say, if I made this thing that's magenta green, would it work? And would I like that better? Or do I want to toss the green out the window and use the magenta, right? So remember, you don't have to use all 4. And that might help you. Because if you really don't know where you're going to go, yeah. Yeah, if you mix blue liner into clear magenta, you will get a dark purple. Tianzia Jade is very teal. It's not, it's very blue. So again, there you'd want to go away from that, because if you check it against the triad, it's actually a yellow green that you want. You don't want a blue green. Dungeon Slime is what the color that, or even like a Naga, depending on if you're using it as your light, then you want to go probably Dungeon Slime. Tianzia is definitely a blue green and not part of that. So definitely consider only using a couple. If you've got a 4 color scheme, consider using 3. If you've got a 3 color scheme, consider using 2 if it's a very simple model. Because when you start throwing in that, and it's actually the same thing we're running into on Mousy here, right? Like right now I've got a blue-yellow scheme. And the triad is red, yellow, blue, which is why I was thinking about a red thing on the hat. But I don't have anywhere else to put that red, because it's a simple model. And so that's where you run into the problem with the 3 colors, and sometimes you just got to dial it back and just go blue and gold, right? So all those, hopefully something in there helped you. All right, there we go. Tarnished brass. Come on, give me my paint. Goop, goop. It's goopy. Needs me to add some water to it. And then I want my golden, because I don't have my new gold right next to me. Because I do want to bring up some edges on this sharper. And then some pearl white. So I'm going to mix that up also. So I'm going to mix up my three gold, well, 2 golds and a white. Yeah, but spring cleaning is a nice prep for painting, I find, because it kind of makes your brain feel all orderly because you've organized your area. I know for me, Shadow Raven, I really depend on having an orderly and non-cluttered painting surface to feel really inspired to paint. So I have to do periodic cleansings. So yeah, I mean, spring cleaning makes sense that it would actually enable you to paint with a happier mindset. I'm going to put a little bit of water into my brass. Water flow improver mix, actually. Because I don't want this to be thick. I'm just pretty much going to be bringing it in to shine up some areas. And then I've got the gold here. Now this gold is going to be very translucent. So the reason I've got the pearl white here is that I might actually do a mix to give it a little more coverage. I am going to add a little bit of water to that as well. Oh yeah. Yeah, Agent Marvel for sure. Then I would decide which one's going to look better. Follow my gut and choose one or the other. And maybe decide based on, do you need like a light color? Or do you need, you know, like, because the Dungeon Slime would give you a light color if you're missing light colors elsewhere on the figure. It got painted earlier, yeah. I just base coated it, Pendrake. We had a lot of talk about... Oh no! Well, that wasn't bad. We had a lot of talk about the color of the hatband, which may change. Well, I just put a drop of pure white into my pearl white, which you can totally do, by the way. And it will aid coverage. It'll take the shine down just a little. So I am going to add another drop of pearl. Yeah, so never be afraid to simplify a color scheme if your model is fairly simple and you sense that you don't have a plan or a place to put those extra accent colors. But that said, I prefer 3 color schemes. Very much prefer. Alrighty, so let's get in there with some of this brass and gold. And get the edges here. See those little dabs? They show up so well because they're catching the light. But around the edges of this plate are really where you would get stuff kind of scraped off. So you can see that, bringing that up. Oh, right. Where's the blue? Or is the blue just blue liner? Oh, okay. Okay. Honestly, I might make the gems just pale blue. But I don't think I'd go with magenta. I think I'd go with the green instead. I don't know though. Like, in my head, that model is very simple in my head. If there's no clothing and all you have is the tiger. And so the simpler the model, the more limited the color scheme. You can use like sneaky colors and shadows and highlights. Like you could use a violet red, since he's a magical tiger. You could use the violet red to actually just shade the orange. Agent Marvel. Yeah, but then throwing that belt into red just doesn't feel right to me, Pendrake. The lower on the model you get, the less I want to usually play up brighter colors. So I feel like this is leather and this is actually a faded cloth. Because that's usually what happens with hat bands, the materials. Like hat bands are usually metal or like if they're decorative, like Santa Fe style, or they're cloth often. So I feel like going down here and making it like bringing attention to this area is just not the right thing to do. I may make this a muted red if I can find ways to introduce red on the basing, or if I talked about this when you weren't here, or if I can introduce it into the pink, but I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. But I do want the belt to be leather because the belt is balancing the leather on the one hand and the wood on the other here. So there is some balancing going on there. But yeah, you might want to just use the red violet. You'd have to darken it. I mean, you'd have to go with red violet and not magenta because magenta is not dark enough to shade your orange with unless you get a really dark magenta or you add blue to it, like you were saying. Then you could actually use that, and then you could make the gems maybe green. That might work. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can think of several ways to tackle it, as you can see. It would probably be one that you might be able to do even a block. So, okay, so if you've got a piece of card, like I tend to use for my notes, right? What you could do is just make a square or a rectangle to be your tiger and maybe give it arms. And paint that, in, like kind of just sketch it in, just make 2 bars of orange and, the white underbelly and an orange head, orange arms, and then dots of blue for the flame. And then just take like dabs of paint and try like, okay, what if the gems are on the necklace? So maybe I put light blue on the gems. How does that look? Okay, now I put magenta on the orange. How does that look? So you could block it in just using a card and not you don't have to draw. You just have to like put like rectangles and circles in appropriate places. That is usually enough to give you an idea of colors that will work without having to slather paint on the model over and over. Oh, okay, Pendrake, yeah. But yeah. So I'm actually mixing a little bit of my tarnished brass with the golden high flow gold to get this brighter edge gold. I'll also stipple with that lighter gold as we get toward the top of things to bring a little bit more shine in, like up there. I do like the edge highlights I'm getting here, and I'm going to grab that gold and get those rivets. So now we've got some variance, some variation. Usually if I just think about it and I just do some blobs on a piece of paper, or, honestly, if I just think about it a little while, I'll usually be able to figure out the color, like what the best color scheme is. Sometimes it involves changing the color of something else. Now I'm going to scrape the edges of this top metal as well by getting the lighter gold and doing the edges of each of those bands of metal. So getting that little light, you can see that little light band right there. Finished chapter 25 of my book this morning, my new book, as far as editing it. I think it's going to have about 35 or 36 chapters. This one may be longer than East of the Sun, now that I'm actually getting into it, into the editing more. We'll see. I need to do a cut. I need to go through and cut stuff too, so make it tighter. And if you're on my mailing list, be aware that you're if you have my mailing list for the book. I mean, I found that yesterday Google wanted to put my newsletter. I just sent out a newsletter update. Wanted to put my newsletter into promotions tab instead of my standard tab. So I had to run in there and star the email and move it to my inbox, my primary box. So if you are on my mailing list for my book, be aware that if you are on Gmail, you may want to double check that and see if it has shoved my newsletter to your promotions box instead of primary, and correct that so that it doesn't do it again. Yesterday I shared on my newsletter, one of my favorite all-time children's book series, one that really influenced me in my writing, one that I read over and over as a kid. So go take a gander if you're signed up for my newsletter. Especially if you have younger relatives who read and you are looking for book recommends. It's an old series, but it's very cool. Yeah, I just love it, man. It's kind of what got my groove on for the King Arthur mythos, Agent Marvel, when I read that. I read those books. They're really, really, really good. And the feel of magic is very similar to my books. You may recognize the feel. When I read them, I can recognize like how I like magic to kind of feel and impact the reader. Like it's very much that. But yeah, it's neat. Kodiak, well, I mean, most of the time I like it, Pendrake, because most of the time it does shunt advertising stuff or promotional stuff into the appropriate boxes. And usually I know if I sign up for a mailing list, I know to go and fetch it from whatever box. But I was surprised because when I first did my newsletter, it didn't shunt me into that box, but then this time it did. So I don't know why it decided this was a promotional email. Maybe because I was talking about, that book series or whatever. I don't know. As far as Chimera, Kodiak, if you like mixing colors, then Chimera may be worthwhile for you. It is expensive. If you are not comfortable with mixing colors, I feel like Chimera is kind of a waste of money. I would maybe go pick up some of the So Flat Liquitexes instead if you wanted to try a different thing. Or something like that, right? Pick up a different brand. Because Chimera is it's really for people who want to mix paint like oil painters do. So always having to add white for opacity and stuff like that. The Chimeras, I mean, they're clear brights, right? And so they can add some punchy color, because their base is able to be a little bit more loaded than the clear bright base is. But it's still like they're just thicker, right? Like if I thin them to the level of Master Series, I get the same level of punch. And you will need to thin them more because they are goopy. So it really is like Chimera isn't going to do anything for you if you're not a mixer, except maybe give you some punchy like tools. Like they are working with pretty with high density pigments there. So there are some colors that you can't get like in Reaper, like the blue shade phthalo. But a lot of the main colors, like the first set, there's a lot of Reaper equivalent. Yeah, I don't see the tab, Quindy, but I do, it does pop up the little promotions thing, right? And I saw my name on the promotions little thing, the little highlighted, they'll pop it up and give you an example of things that are in your promotions tab. And that's what made me notice. So then I had to go up to the little 3 bars on the left and drop down, go to my promotions tab and rescue my email. But yeah, I mean, that's really the case with a lot of the paints, the new paints, Kodiak, that people are all about, because it's very, I hate to say this word, but it's true. It's very fashionable right now to work with pure pigments. And so, but that's not going to be like awesome for you unless that's what you've decided you want to focus on next in your painting development, right? If you're scared, if you're someone who's intimidated by paint mixing right now at this point in your painting hobby, like chimeras are probably just going to sit there and stare at you accusingly. So a little bit of highlight on the little brass ring there. Yep, we are on the Mies. We're working on the Mies today, Sephiroth. But yeah, does that make sense to you? Like sometimes we get kind of that excited feeling because other people are talking about a product and you're like, ooh, that sounds kind of cool. But then when you really look at it, maybe it doesn't really suit the way you paint, at least not yet. Should you decide you want to get into mixing, Chimera is an excellent tool for it. I like them a lot more than I thought I would. Like having painted, painted most of that lumberjack model for the Mark Maslin's class. All of it, actually. I think, except for the white. Everything but the white is those chimeras. So, and there are some really cool colors in the second set, like the royal brown that I love so much, that aren't anywhere else. So we're gonna bring that shine back in on that center section. Okay. Yeah, if you like mixing colors, then it's more likely to be cool for you. I would recommend using them on a wet palette. You will have to thin them a lot in a well palette because they are, as I mentioned, they are goopy. So we're just doing a little bit. You can see the shine coming up here. See this light area here. That's where I'm reapplying my metallics to make sure that I get more shine when the light hits it, to make my metallics look nicer. You can see how that works. I'm going to put some out on the edges here too. And I'm mostly using the golden high flow acrylics iridescent gold, but again, you could use new gold for this. It would work just fine, or possibly dragon gold, but dragon gold is a little bit of a more darker yellowy gold. It is almost a pure flake, but it's not as light as the other flake. So yeah, exactly, Butts. And what they ran into is the same thing that I used to complain about with Ed, is that it's all very well to start your paint line saying you're going to do pure pigments, but then you run out of pure pigments and you still want to make money, so you start putting out blends. I mean, when it comes down to it, there are only so many pure pigments in the world that are useful to artists. So you're going to run out of money makers. And if your whole business model is based on releasing new colors, that's why I would complain to Ed that he always wanted new colors. I'm like, we have 500 colors. I'm splitting hairs. I can't come up with anything truly new anymore, but he didn't care because that was the thing. It's like, well, we need a new paint release, so... Well, or you just have to go into it understanding that you're just going to have those core paints and that everything that you do from then on needs to be a different business tactic, right? The problem with the retail model when you're not expanding it is you are kind of leaving money on the table. Like, think about if Chimera put out like a set of short free videos on how to use those paints, but then they had a whole bunch of paywalled videos that are maybe longer, maybe get some famous artists to do some, kind of like Dark Sword did, and sell those, right? Like, those paints are not easy to use. So providing people with some free stuff to give them a leg up on using them, and then offering more paid stuff, that's a product, right? But paint companies almost never do this. And I'm like, it's because they're not video companies, maybe. And that's how you get drowned up. No, you get drowned up pink. You never heard that. Did you ever hear me tell that story, Volnevia? You get drownable pink when your boss thinks he's a smartass and walks into your office and puts it up on your board of colors that need to be mixed because he thinks he's so funny. And you take one look at it and decide that, screw you, boss. You think you're so funny? I'm going to make this color. And then I'm going to give it out at ReaperCon. Yeah, resin. I mean, there's almost nothing better, I think, than doing a paint video with two really old friends who've been around the hobby for years. Like, I'm really surprised that, I mean, everybody's got their name nowadays, and it seems like you're not getting like, two painters. It would be really cool if we got more of those videos, because when there are two of you, you can really play off each other, and you can toss ideas around, and you can talk about your different philosophies, and it just adds value. Like, it seriously adds value. And if one of you is more comfortable on camera, as I was and Jen wasn't, it really helps that other person to to have that person to bounce stuff off of. So, yeah, okay. Okay, so you got it, Volnevia. Good. But yeah, so... Yeah, and there's nothing, I mean, I mix with Reaper all the time. Like, usually, honestly, if I'm going to use, scale color, or I'm going to use Chimera, I am using them exclusively. Like, this dude, like, he's scale color, with some Reaper mixed in. But he definitely was my scale color artist, model. Like, he primarily uses scale color artist. With just Reaper added for some consistency. But yeah, so when I use those other paint lines, I tend to go, I'm going to paint this entire model in Chimera. I'm going to paint this entire model in scale color, right? Huh. That's funny, Twisted Oma. But yeah, so there will be a model. It may be the Orc. But there will be a model that I paint entirely with the Chimera colors, now that I've got them. Some lines I'm not at all interested in picking up. Like Pro Acryl, I picked up a couple bottles back when they first came out, and I actually was not into them, so I just kind of went away there. Oh, really? Oh, no. Aw, sorry, Scott. Fanboyed hard. Yeah, Anubis is almost done. I just needed basing. His basing is all that's left now. And then I need to get his plinth ready. Yeah, it is a thing, Pendrake. But streaming, I don't know. I don't like it as much on a stream. I mean, it could be fun on a stream, but I don't know. I just wish, like, there was more, like, educational content. Like, the problem with streaming is that you're already babbling with your audience, right? You already are playing off of people. That's the cool thing about streaming, is that this is a collaboration, right? You guys ask questions, I answer them, we chat, we educate, we do stuff. So I don't really need another painter on here, because that's just actually going to make it harder to get anything done on this stream, probably. If we were doing a class, a course online, then I think it's definitely worth having 2 painters. Right, exactly. Longer form streams, Quindy. Exactly. And I think that's why. It's because then you not only have to manage your talk between you and the audience, but you're also talking with the other painter, and then the other painter is interacting with the audience, and that makes everything last longer. So I feel like classes are better where you either don't have chat or you have like curated chat where you've got a moderator and the moderator just reads off questions to you so you don't actually watch chat. Because otherwise it's very hard to get to make it actually informative. In my opinion. But yeah. All right. So you can see how shiny that made these areas. You can see the light picking up just off the areas that I brought the metallics back in on. And that's lovely. That's exactly what shaded metallics, what you're asking them to do. Like, that's what you want to see. So now let's tackle kind of the side areas with that same kind of thing. And on the side areas, which might be a little bit in shadow, I probably won't add quite as much. I wouldn't add that bright gold, maybe. I would just add a little bit of tarnished brass on the end. Just to bring it around. But up here on the hilt, the crossguard, I can definitely add this bright gold. But yeah, I ended up liking Chimera a lot more than I thought I would. I don't know if I'm ever going to finish that lumberjack, but I'll probably start a new model. I just have to ask myself if the orc is really the model that I want to use all Chimera on. And I might, because the comic book style might work with it. I haven't decided. Or maybe it's a scale color model. Because I would like to use my beloved burnt umber on it. Because it's got a lot of bone on it. I don't know if you guys have seen my orc that I'm doing the comic book on. It's in the other room. I can fetch it. I showed the stream a while ago, but... So bringing up those highlights on the back. Oh, Crowley. Have fun. Oh, the too thin coats. Is that Duncan's line? Yeah, the problem with paint, especially when you're somebody like that and you're trying to do a paint line on your own, is that you don't make much of a margin on it. And that's why the reason that it's going to be probably pricier is that essentially when you're a miniatures company, you can afford to make a low margin on your paint because you're selling miniatures. But if you're Duncan, you're selling you, right? You're making your money off of your YouTube channel and maybe a Patreon. That doesn't make you a ton of money. And so you are looking for actual income from your paint line. So I would bet you anything that's why they are a little more expensive, because he wanted to actually be able to make a margin off of that was more than pennies. Putting out a good paint line is expensive, and that's why you tend not to make very much money off of it. Like, there are Reaper colors that lose money. I'll tell you guys that flat out. And the rest of the paint line just makes up for it. But we're able to do that because we have the rest of the paint line, and we aren't looking to make a killing on paint, or we would be charging more. What happens though, Butts, is that this happened before, actually. When we were first bringing out Master Series, it was another time when paint lines were just booming. But what will tend to happen is that some lines will really settle in over in Europe, some will settle in more in America, some will die just because the company either doesn't make the money it wants or it just won't catch an audience. And some of them are niche enough that they will exist in their niches, like Scale Color Artists with the tube paint. I will admit, I like it. So I'm one of the only people I know who reaches for it regularly, but I really like it. So you will see it, when you get a glut like this, it's natural then for some things to just fall off the face of the earth, some things to stay in a very niche market, and some lines to be in broad use. And then if the niche market people will just have to decide, are we making enough money off of this to keep it in production, right? Yeah, but back when Master Series came out, there was Adacolor, and there was like Pro Paint was still out there. There was GW, there was Vallejo, there was like 2 different kinds of Vallejo, you know, and you had a couple of paint lines. There was an Australian paint line and a paint line, like there was at least one over in Europe that nobody could get a hold of over here. And like this has happened before. It happens like it's a cyclical thing. It's a cyclical thing. I mean, the thing is that it's a lot like writing and painting, and technology has enabled this, right? You can now become a paint person, you know, and make a paint company, and it's easier to do it than ever before. But then, will you actually survive? Will your product find an audience, right? So yeah, there's a lot of lines now, but we'll see if they really stick around. And it takes a long time for a paint line to die. Because it'll still be in game stores, it'll still be sold, you know, you won't notice that it's not popular overall. Like, only the people putting it out will notice that, you know, they're not getting reorders, that those paints are sitting on the shelves in game stores, or, you know, stuff like that. But the paint line will still stay around a long time because they bought that stock, so they're going to sell it out, right? Yeah, exactly. Everybody's got their own, like, preference, and your painting style will determine it too, whether Reaper is better for you, or Vallejo, or Scale Color, or Chimera, right? And then there are people like Luca who pretty much gets paid to try new lines, right? Like, Luca is very popular, and there are a ton of people probably asking him whenever they find a new thing, what about this new thing? And so it's to Luca's incentive to try the new thing and figure it out, right? But just because the new thing is the new thing right now doesn't mean the new thing is going to be around 5 years from now. Now, the Golden So Flats are obviously not a example of that, because Golden is a huge company that makes money off of tons of other products, so it can afford to stay in the market for a while. I'm willing to bet that it's just noticed a fall off in its tube paint sales, and it noticed that this was an available market, and so it leveraged it. I can't speak to that, Agent Marvel. I kind of doubt it. So in order to establish that hub in Europe, we did look at different areas of Europe before while we were looking at the UK. The UK was just, it made sense for us. It was English speaking. We were able to do it there with a certain amount of ease. But keep in mind that to start that hub, like Kit, one of our owners, and his entire family moved to the UK. So I don't think necessarily that we have another person at Reaper who is just willing to uproot themselves and move to France or Spain or whatever, right? And so it takes in it, because we would rather, Reaper's always like, Reaper as a company is like family, right? So you want to send one of your trusted family members over to pioneer that project. Yeah, exactly. So it sounds easy, but it's not easy. And we've already got a good Australian distributor, because we have an excellent relationship with those guys down there. And so really, the problem is that distribution in Europe is really weird. Like, you have to be exclusive with somebody, and then you alienate the other people. And Ed had tried to, figure it out. Ed had tried to figure this out for decades. Keep in mind, this is not the first time, and it was more that, the Kickstarters, I think, enabled us to take that financial step to establish an actual Reaper run hub. But for mainland Europe, it would be far more useful to find a decent distributor, but he had real problems doing that, finding somebody that he wanted to work with. So I don't know, Agent Marvel, and this is pure speculation, and I have not been in on meetings. I have not talked to anybody, and I didn't ever talk to Ed about this. Except once, I think. I have a vague memory of asking him if he regretted going to the UK. And he's like, yeah, but there's nothing we can do about it now. He's like, essentially it would cost so much money to try to start over again in mainland Europe. And you'd have to source. And even then you might have to deal through distribution. I have no idea, what the business agreements over there are a little bit weird. They're European and they're not like ours. So... They're not attempting to break into mini painting. What I think they did, Butts, is they borrowed our hobby style paints because illustrators were using them. And illustrators are traditional artists, and they are Golden's wheelhouse. So people like Wayne Reynolds, who paints for Pathfinder, started switching over to Master Series paint because it worked better for him on illustration board, right? It did. It was more matte and it was fluid and he could paint with it better and it suited his style. So people like magic card artists, some of them, and other illustrators find that like our hobby type of paint is more friendly to what they do because they want the matte finish, they want the fine detail, they want no impasto, they don't want texture on the paintings, so they want a smooth, flat paint. And I just feel like enough of them essentially moved over to like a hobby paint type of line that, because they all talk, right? There's got to be a fantasy artist like community. That some of them know that Wayne Reynolds uses hobby paint, So, yeah. And there's no reason not to, Volnavia, right? It's got the finish you want, and it does what you want. It's just acrylic. It's just a fluid acrylic. So, I feel like the illustration market is what made Golden go toward that. I feel like that set of painters, which is a fair number, one would think these days, probably more than the fine artists, those people, are the fuel behind why those so flats are out there. And then, of course, since it was based on a model of paint that we obviously can find useful, then people started using them for miniature painting because you get a lot in one of those bottles, although they are not cheap. Yeah, exactly. And for that same reason, Volnavia, right? You want the finish and you want the flatness. And Blanche, again, was an illustrator, right? Or is still, possibly. So he's going to want the same thing. He's not going to... There's no advantage for him in using a tube paint and having to fight that texture. Like, why use a tube paint when you have to thin it, unless it's got something you really want? Like, why use it when you could just reach for a bottle that's already fluid, already the right consistency for you, and just use it? Especially if it's a high-quality paint, which a lot of hobby paints are. Because that's kind of the way we've run. We've run toward the fine art end with a lot of these offerings. The Chimera, totally a fine art end. Scale color artist, this is a fine arts paint, guys. Yeah, I mean, it's in a tube. So yeah, I feel like it's that. Like I doubt that the fine arts companies are really noticing miniature painting, or if they do, they don't break it out. Right? It's just another hobby paint market, and hobby paint people aren't doing impasto. They aren't doing textured paint on a canvas. They are painting objects that they want a smooth, flat coat on. Whether you're painting a kid's chair or a little ceramic ornament for your mom or a miniature, it's all the same. We want the same things. So, yeah. Yeah, right. So essentially it's not an easy thing and it's very expensive, Agent Marvel. So I would not expect it. If something changed and something made it very feasible, if an opportunity opened up and Reaper thought that it was doable, they might consider it. But remember also that like Ed and Dave kept this company alive through being very cautious with spending money. And so given the investment, you would need to really demonstrate that having a hub in Spain or wherever would justify the cost. Because the other thing is that things are hard to get outside the US because shipping is a mess still, right? Like shipping takes a long time. And so you can't pivot, right? That's Reaper's strength in the US and Canada, is that we can just pivot. You need an item, we're out of stock, we can just make it. For a lot of it, except for the Bones stuff. But not the Bones USA. Bones USA lets us pivot. But you can't pivot overseas. You're going to take a number of weeks to get that product to the overseas thing. If an overseas thing gets an order and it can't fill it, it's screwed. It doesn't matter if Reaper was actually running a hub over there, not unless you have your own paint department and your own Siocast machines and your own everything, right? You can't pivot the same way. That's why GW bought its own factories. So that it could pivot. It could have a quick turnaround. It could move faster. It could be more agile. So Yeah, even if we had a hub in Spain, wouldn't the same shipping concerns from the headquarters in the U.S. still be a problem? Yeah, they would. Um, and I mean, sometimes also, like if a store can't order a thing, the store just gives up. So, or a consumer. The consumer tries to order a thing from Reaper UK, or they try a couple of times and it's always out, meaning out over the couple of weeks they actually remember to look. They're just going to give up on it. They're like, it's never in stock. It's a generalization, but they just don't want to waste their time. So when it does come back into stock, they won't see it. So there's the perception of scarcity is itself a challenge. And this has always been kind of the thing with having those across the world type of stuff. I mean, yeah, you can do a small drop ship order via UPS like overnight, but it's really expensive. And that's not in your business margins. It's not, you haven't put that into your margins. So we got that nice and shiny. That's nice and shiny. That's good and shiny. So you're really seeing the shine come back now on these lovely things. I did put a little bit of my white up there on the edge. So we're getting all that shine back now. Where we touched up just our little ring here and everything there, and that's how shaded metallics typically works. It's a lot like. I mean, it is like traditional painting where you've got a base coat and then a wash and then a highlight, right? Except that you're usually doing more, if you're trying to do a high-end shaded metallic, you're using more than one color in your wash. And highlighting is more challenging because the paint is often more translucent because it's the flakes, and it's painting with flake, it's not painting with paint. So it does tend to be a little more challenging. Oh, yeah, thanks. Sorry, Quindy, I got off on a rant there. The business side got me off on a rant. But yeah, so bottom line, Agent Marvel, a lot of times people think that this stuff is easy, but a lot of times it's actually much more expensive and more difficult than you think. And it always has to be questioned. Reaper will always ask the question, will we actually make enough money if we did this to pay for the time, pain in the butt, and expense of doing it? Yeah, there's flakes in every metallic paint, Pendrake. The flakes in adamantium are a kind of a graphite color. It's a very dark gray metallic. So once you add the black, it really comes off as black. You love a good rant stream. I'm going to take some of my white and just do a little bit at the top to harden that highlight. See, and that puts a very hard highlight there. So if I go too much, then I want to kind of blend that out with my previous gold. Don't want to necessarily just have a circle of highlight there. I want to kind of blend it in a little. There. There. Yeah, we just do the best we can. I mean, having the UK hub is still better than not having the UK hub. I mean, and there's also no like easy answer. Like the other thing is like the taxes and everything like that, import tax that people in Europe have to pay, makes it difficult. Like there's a lot of stuff, but it's also like the money you spend doing that is going to also take away from money that you might spend on other things like helping develop a new line of Cyocast machines that can do larger models, right? All that kind of thing. Or paying for more Cyocast machines. Or getting more labor so that you can actually run like the paint department fast enough to catch up on all the dang fast pallets you don't have. Looking at you, Gloominggrave. Looking at you. I never use metallics as shadows, Pendrake. So the answer is no. Like on occasion, if I use the Curel method, then I am using I'm mixing a little bit of gloss and metal into my paint, but I actually don't necessarily prefer that. I want my shadow to be flat unless and until I decide to bring it up a little bit. Like here, we just did a glaze of metallic over the surface here, but to get the shadow, I needed to use straight paint. Yep, I'm about to leave. I need to play with the pupper, and I need to get my walk in, and then the game of day begins. Diablo launches in, 42 minutes. And then my David is going to be gone. So if I want to have a little lunch with him, I need to hit it also. So yes, I will be on stream tomorrow. We'll be working a bit on my model for Andy, and maybe a little bit on my comic book style orc. If I get like the white finished here, and I don't feel like starting the black, then I'll work on the orc. So yeah, I will not Numbat. That is the weekend that I will be doing the puppy evaluation for Kiki's siblings, half siblings. Hold on, wait, maybe we can get a puppy thing. Puppy thing. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yes, I have to go and play with that. Like, given the choice between Kublai Khan and puppies, I mean, what would you choose? But yeah, I'm going out to, yep, and there's the puppy enclosure. The puppy playpen is all up. Oh, it's too cute. It's too cute. So cute. Very, very cute, guys. Very, very cute. So yeah, I'm going to be going out to help Bridget do the evaluation on Kiki's siblings, Kiki's siblings, because I really want to see what this litter threw. Because it will, she's got such light colored puppers. Because it'll probably be like a factor in like what Kiki throws. Oh, there we go. There's the puppy puddle. Somebody's got a gremlin face. Gremlin face. Shark face. Shark face. Puppy puddle. You bet. Yeah, total cute. So yeah, so that's where I'll be. So yeah, I won't be at the con. So puppies, yay! But yeah, I'm gonna have some fun. And then next weekend, we're going to be in Yosemite, so I will not be here on Friday. Yeah, but we'll keep you guys up to date on where I'm not going to be and where I'm going to be, okay? All right, thank you, everybody. On Monday, we are back to basing on this guy and probably maybe some colors on Jolie the Scribe as well. We're almost done here. We need to put another layer of the gravel on here, and then once I get that placed, we can work on Jolie for a while we wait for that to dry. All right, yes, and come back for Reaperland, or Quindy will never forgive you, or something. All right, have a fun one, guys. Bye!